Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinells, and tonight I have a very special episode. Sometimes, to move forward, we must look back. I told you guys that I was going to basically start this series over with a rerun week every other week. So this is that rerun week, and yet, here we are having a brand new 2020 conversation. And that's kind of going to be the plan. I'm going to do some kind of intros for some episodes. This one is going to be a little bit longer than other ones because the episode is, in fact, very, very short because it was never meant to be an episode. Basically, it was actually meant to be a sound check, a mic check, and we just ended up putting it out there for you guys just the same. Now, I will say, even though this is the first episode, in some ways, it's a great episode for new listeners to listen to. In other ways, I think you might get a little bit more out of it if you're a long-time listener. So, if you're a new listener, maybe go back and listen to the last episode or wait until I post the next episode to really dive in. I don't know, I guess that sounds stupid. Just listen to this episode, it's good. But I do want to give you a little bit of behind-the-scenes info before we begin. So, what I'm doing tonight is playing for you the first ever episode of Spooky AS. This episode is so old it is no longer available on some streaming services, including Apple Podcasts. And it is still on the website, will always be on the website, as long as the show is still around. However, it's so far back, it's buried so far back, it can be a little tricky to find. And of course, I'm too damn cheap to pay for the professional website, so I'm still using the free version. So the tools they give you, you know, it's, and also just my skills are not the best. I'll just say that too. So I'm not blaming the website creator itself, you know. Anyway, before we really dive in, let me tell you about the website. It's spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place, and that is the show's blog page. From there, you can listen to each and every episode, including the other episodes that are no longer available on your favorite streaming services. But you can also find links to all of our social media. We are at Spooky Ass Shit on Instagram, and that is ASS, not AS. Spooky Ass Shit on Instagram. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. Now, when you go to the Facebook page, there is also a closed group that is for the true blue spookaroos. So if you're a big fan of the show, if you're someone who still uses Facebook like me, they say that makes us old-timey, but hey, that's all right. I'm okay with that. Then you can join the closed group, and the reason for the closed group is because that way we can talk about serial killers, we can talk about ghost stories, we can talk about all that kind of stuff that some people think is kind of weird, and we know those people are wrong, but still, if you're trying to apply for a job or you are a professional, like say you're a doctor or something, you might not want people looking you up and knowing that you like to talk about these things a lot. So we have the closed group, the Spookaroos. Not that it gets too rowdy on there. I don't ever want to give the impression that it's like a bunch of sickos or anything. There might be one or two sickos in the mix, but for the most part, it's all good people. Now, this episode that I'm about to play for you, it's only about 9 minutes long, maybe a little bit over that. And like I said, this was supposed to be a sound check. And what was happening here was my friend and yours, Brian Tony, came over to help me set up my microphones. Now, let me take you back even further. I think some of you might know this story already. But in 2015, I started doing stand-up comedy. And I met a guy, a Boston comic, by the name of Will Noonan. You might see him around. He's been on some commercials lately, but he's doing his stand-up thing. And he was talking to myself and my friend Tom Cole, who many of you know, or longtime listeners at least will remember. And he said that a great thing for us to do as people starting out in stand-up comedy would be to start a podcast. And he said, it doesn't have to be about comedy, but just anything to get you comfortable with a microphone, to get you comfortable kind of riffing and talking and going off the top of your head. And he said, and, if you happen to build an audience because of it, that's great. But, don't plan on it, but just to get yourself comfortable and into a routine where you're thinking on your feet and trying to be funny. Well, I took that advice, except maybe debatably the funny part. I don't consider myself especially funny on this show, although I hope a couple chuckles here and there, right? Hopefully. But I took that advice to try to get more comfortable with the microphone and to get comfortable hearing myself, which is a big help when you're trying to, record yourself doing stand-up comedy, and depending on the night you have, the laughs that you get and all. Now, of course, I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it on the show or if I mentioned it in the video that I only posted for the Spookaroos. That's one of the benefits of being a Spookaroo. You get private videos. Like I said, I consider those guys my true blue Spookaroos, my core audience. So anything I have to say, they're going to hear it first. Anything big, I mean. And this, announcement about the show was posted there first. I did a video for them, and I think that's where I talked a little bit about the stand-up comedy. It's kind of a young man's game. I mean, if you really have the drive, I think it doesn't matter what age you are. If you really have the drive to do anything, you go ahead and do it. In my case, what it meant to become a stand-up comic is that you are going to go out to a open mic, not even a comedy. I was going to say comedy club, but probably not even a comedy club. Probably an open mic at a bar or something like that. And you are going to wait and hope that you get put on a list, and you're going to wait and hope that somebody calls your name so that you can go up and perform in front of what are mostly other comics trying to get a little bit of stage time, worried about their own set, not thinking at all about what you're doing up there. And it's kind of like planning to become a singer and going to karaoke hoping to get discovered, which sounds ridiculous. You would never do that as a singer, but as a stand-up comic, that basically is what you do. And of course, I mean, you don't wait to get discovered. It's not like Hollywood's going to come walking into an open mic night and say, oh, that's the man I've been looking for. But you meet other comics, you kind of network, and hopefully you someone asks you to come be on their show and something like that. So that can work for you. But you do have disadvantages if you are an older person, say an older person with a regular 9-to-5 job, or in my case, a 7:30 to 3:30 job that you have to be at your desk at 7:30 in the morning, and you can't always drive out into the heart of the big city to make sure you get there when you have to get back to your suburban job for 7:30. So anyway, long story short, there is the comedy career didn't quite pan out because I chose not to. I realized if you really want to do this, you really have to have drive and determination to do this specifically. And I realized that my heart wasn't in it. And if my heart's not in it, I'm going to get out of the way for the young bucks who have that kind of drive and determination for that particular dream. So at that point, I realized, well, maybe I don't need to keep doing the podcast, but I really like the podcast. I like having people over. I like discussing spooky things. And by the way, when I was starting the podcast, getting back to that story, I had in mind that I would either do a podcast about spooky stuff, or I would do one about childhood, because I am very interested in those subjects, and I find that most people are very interested in talking about those kinds of subjects. Their own childhoods, the toys that they had, the shows that they watch, nostalgia, basically. People are really into talking about the good old days. And I don't know, I guess my passions were just a little bit more with the spooky side, and that is what ended up winning. And so we have spooky ass shit, because we got a show where, hey, what are we going to talk about? I don't know, spooky ass shit. All right, let's do it. So that's where the show was born. I'm going to be straight with you people. Longtime listeners know, I mentioned it earlier, I do have a regular 7:30 to 3:30 job, and that is in human service. I manage a day program for adults with developmental disabilities. And it might shock you to learn that this kind of job does not pay very much money. Human services is not a way to wealth and fame, but it is something I'm passionate about. It's a job that I've had more than half my life now at this point. And it's a calling, they say, right? But it doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for extras. So how did I pay for this equipment that I use? Well, the answer to that is a jolly old Christmas elf, Saint Nicholas. Yes, I was 1 year a Santa Claus. That's a whole nother story, perhaps even a whole nother podcast in and of itself. The long and short of it is, my friend and yours, Emily Ferguson, got me into that line of work. And with the money that I made that year as a Santa Claus, I purchased the necessary equipment to start this podcast. I already had the computer, so that was great. I needed the microphone. I needed the interface. That's what I got. And it cost a chunk of money, but here we are all these years later, essentially still using the same equipment. So I guess it was a good investment. There was just one problem. I didn't know how to set up any of this stuff. I didn't know how to record anything on GarageBand or through any other medium at all. So I called my friend and yours, Brian Toney, and I said, hey, I know you've got a little bit of experience with this stuff. Maybe you can come over and help me figure this out. And help me figure this out, he did. So this is the first episode. And like I said, it was really just recorded to be a mic test, just to kind of record something and see how it sounded. And we weren't planning on releasing it, really. But it came off to be, I think, a pretty good description of the show and what we were trying to do here in the early days, and pretty much what we've stuck to ever since. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put this one out. So this became episode number 1. Now, before I play the episode for you, I just want to point out a couple things. I mentioned some show ideas, some topic ideas that I still, even after all this time, now heading into our 5th season, I still haven't got to. We talked about the Undertaker versus Undertaker match, but we haven't delved into spooky wrestling too much, and that is definitely a subject I am passionate about, spooky wrestling. So we're going to get more into that at some point. And also breakfast cereals, the Monster breakfast cereals. I can't believe I haven't covered that yet. I put it up in a poll recently on the Instagram, and it only got like 1 or 2 votes, so maybe people aren't excited about that episode. But I'm very interested in the General Mills Monster cereals, so you can look forward to that episode, maybe even within this season. The other thing I want to mention about when you listen to this episode, you will hear me talk about Unsolved Mysteries at length, and you will hear me bemoan the fact that it's not available anywhere. Well, that was true back in February of 2016, but now here in February of 2020, that couldn't be further from the truth. Unsolved Mysteries is literally available everywhere. It's for free on YouTube, not the entire series, but several episodes. It's available on all streaming services, including some of the free ones that you get like with your Roku or your Comcast Flex or whatever. It's all over the place now. For years and years and years, all they had were those like limited DVDs and of course the reruns they showed on Lifetime. But I cut the cord long ago, baby. I ain't got no Lifetime to try to watch Unsolved Mysteries on. I had nowhere else to find it. And when Amazon, which was the first streaming service to carry it, announced that they had it, I literally ordered it immediately. I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh, time to get Amazon Prime. Had it ever since because I enjoy the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and other top quality programs that Amazon Prime provides. This is not a commercial. Although if they want to throw some money my way, Amazon, I'm here. All right, let's take you now all the way back to February. Actually, I believe it was recorded in January of 2016 to the first episode of Spooky Ass Shit.
All right, level up.
Oh, we're recording now.
We are recording.
All
You're
right.
in my head, and we are at similar levels.
How do I sound in your head?
Creepy. No, you sound fine.
Good.
So,
I always worry that my voice is too high.
no, you're good.
You have a
man.
nice baritone,
Well, thank you.
but I'm a lyric tenor. It's good
That
for
you
singing.
Well, I am here with Eric Dwinells,
Yeah.
and probably no one is ever going to hear this, but just in case they do, this is going to be a podcast about the paranormal. Am I saying that right, or is that
Yeah, I
too
guess-
simplistic?
No, it's if anything, it's not simplistic enough
All right.
because it is going to be about the paranormal, but not just the paranormal. It's called spooky ass shit. So it's going to be
Like it.
about spooky ass shit. But not just necessarily ghosts and stuff like that, but also lighter topics like wrestlers with spooky themes and breakfast cereals with spooky themes and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, but sometimes we'll be talking about serial killers and sometimes we'll be talking about Frankenberry. So,
all right, that sounds like a pretty good spread there.
Yeah, just whatever's spooky ass shit. That's all.
And will you be having guests on who have a proclivity towards this sort of thing, or just anybody you think is interesting?
Yeah, the idea right now...
Or attractive.
Yeah, that always helps. But the idea right now is just... I want to have... Not really guests in the sense that I'm going to ask people questions about a certain topic or something, but more like guest co-host, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And you'll just
and
sort
then
of experience
we'll talk
this
about,
thing together?
Yeah, we'll talk about it together. Instead of like... Or I haven't decided if I... Like, say we have a topic, and the topic is poltergeist.
Good topic.
And maybe I know everything about poltergeist, maybe, or I at least did some research on it, so I have a bunch of facts and stories and whatever else that I can pull up. I haven't decided if it's a better idea to let the co-host in on that information as well and suggest that they do some research as well, or if it's better if they say, I don't know anything about poltergeist. And then I say, well, come on, because that way I'm explaining it, and that way they're like the audience. They're like the, what's the word I'm looking for? Stand in for the audience, but that's not the word I'm looking for. But what'd you say?
I said tin can because I had no idea what word you were looking for.
I don't know what that is, but yeah.
Surrogate, is that it?
I think that is the word I was looking for.
All right.
Yeah.
Second time's the charm, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want it to be about 40 minutes long because that's generally how long it takes me to drive anywhere from here.
Fair enough. Yeah, so you won't be doing a Todd Glass sort of thing. That's good. We'll keep
it's sort of like
keep the length down.
Yeah, like a funny Unsolved Mysteries, but not too funny. Don't pressure me. It's just it's we're treating it light.
Yeah, I like that.
Because I listen. I play my video games and shit, and I listen to podcasts on YouTube and stuff like that as I play sometimes, and I'll listen to I was listening to one about Bigfoot. And they take it so seriously. Like, these are like diehard believers. I should point out, if anyone does hear this, that I am a skeptic and I don't actually believe in any of these subjects, really, except for maybe aliens. And even that, I find it hard to believe that they're coming down and visiting us. But I do believe that they're out there, far, far away.
But even not necessarily believing in these things, you obviously find some fascination with them.
Oh, yeah. No,
extremely interesting.
Oh,
things.
Yeah. I mean, you can look around my apartment and see. I wear my fascinations, as you might call them, on my sleeve. So, yeah, I mean, I got crystal balls and I got...
There's so many dried out skulls around Eric's apartment right now.
No, there isn't. Just one or two.
Spooky stuff.
Spooky ass shit.
Spooky ass shit. So are you going to have a theme song?
Yes, it is. It's being worked on as we speak, hopefully, by a group called Occultic Overtones.
That sounds just about perfect, I would say.
It's me and Emily, but there's space if you want to join.
All right, I swing a mean tambourine.
Yeah. And that term, Occultic Overtones, comes from a video that we'll be covering on spooky ass shit.
Fantastic.
Which is a YouTube video. It's these two guys. It's a Christian video from the 80s.
Sounds great already.
And it's I don't want to give the name away because go ahead and watch it. Actually, it's called Deception of a Generation, and you can find it on YouTube. It's long, but I put it on for Emily one time. Emily's a good friend of mine, by the way. I put it on for her thinking she'd want to watch like 10 minutes of it because she also enjoys that kind of thing. And we sat and watched the whole thing together. And then she put it on at a Festivus party. And I really was like, this is a mistake. You're about to kill your party. Like, it's not, it's interesting to us, but other people aren't going to like this. Like, they're going to get bored. Everybody loved it. And we sat and watched the whole thing because they're sitting there talking about how the Smurfs are satanic and how He-Man is satanic, and that they would either say that they were occultic or that they had occultic overtones.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
Christians, you guys are the best.
Yeah. It's a good subject. So we'll talk about that special at
Okay, well,
some point.
and it sounds like you already have a fairly full stable of topics. Excuse me, that you could cover on this.
Yeah. There's,
From a life of experience of being interested in spooky-ass.
Yeah, but not just interested, because when I think back to my childhood,
Oh gosh.
yeah, it's going to get
here we go.
It's going to get deep. No, when I think back to my childhood, like the thing is, I don't believe this stuff now, but I sure as hell believed it back then. And I was raised Catholic, so I believed in the devil and demons and all that. And if it was okay to believe in that, well, then everything else is fair game too. Like if you believe in the devil, why wouldn't you believe in ghosts? Why wouldn't you believe in aliens and all that stuff?
I'm with that.
And I loved Unsolved Mysteries, even though it scared the shit out of me. The TV show Unsolved Mysteries for our younger listeners. Good luck finding it on.
We
on
used
the
to have
internet,
this
by the
thing
way.
called broadcast television, kids.
And
there used to be shows on it.
I'm not talking about the one with what the hell's his name? There's a new host that they had for a while, and it wasn't. He was like, I don't have a problem with that guy because I've liked him in other things. I can't think what his name is.
Maybe
Robert Stack is the original host, and he's the man.
only name
He's
I
the
know.
goddamn man. And the spooky ass theme song.
Big ups.
Yeah. No, it's definitely. But I loved that show, but I would always turn to my mom and say, but that didn't happen here, right? That happened far away. And she'd be like, yeah, it could have happened like in my hometown. And she would have been like, oh, no, that was, in China and it's very far away.
That's, yeah.
And then
It
I'd have
can't
my
reach us.
Yeah, and then I'd have my older brother shaking his head in the corner. No, it's
No, that was down the street,
Yeah.
Eric. Yeah.
So,
But don't worry.
It's funny now, but as a kid, I was honestly terrified of all that stuff. So that's an interesting thing that we can delve into too.
Okay.
At some point.
So I think we've sufficiently teased this thing. When is your first guest coming on?
Well, I don't know.
once
He's
you
probably
figure out all
sitting right at the other mic right now.
Oh,
Because
really? All
Yeah.
right, I've just been propositioned.
I gotta find people to rope into it. But I'm hoping
Why
that
there?
there'll be some regulars that come through. And with your smooth baritone,
Oh,
I hope
gosh.
you'll be one. And
You're a sweetheart.
yeah. And I don't know whoever else I can con into joining us. And by us, I guess I mean me.
I think you'll find that there are quite a few people out there who are interested in similar things.
Yeah, interested, but also they have to like be able to be interesting.
Ah,
See?
all right.
That's the thing.
You hear that, world? You hear that,
Yeah.
internet? Got to be interesting to be on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's a tall order. All right, Eric.
You know what my favorite thing about this is that you just kind of hosted the first episode.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too.
Yeah.
All right, let's see how all
I
this
like
sounded.
it that way. All right, let's do it.